What's up, guys? If you've been watching any of my videos recently, I've been making some videos on Make It Stick. And I've been really deep diving this book. Really deep diving. Like, we're like 2 hours in or something, and we're on page 9. And I've just got notes of pages of questions. The margins are all marked up. I've got potentially hours of content now from me literally talking about what I just read in my own words, what I'm thinking, how I'm studying it, elaborating on what I'm reading, retrieving, reviewing, the whole shebang, the whole 9 yards. And I've actually been having a lot of fun with that. And so maybe it's a little premature, but I thought I would start another one. And who knows if I'll stick with this or not. Who knows? I want to stick with Make It Stick pretty much daily until I'm done with that book, and that it looks about 3 months of work for that one. And I was like, what? Where do I start? Not where do I start, but like, all right, let me kill this AC. Oh my God, I forgot to turn this off. I was like, where do I start? But not where do I start? Like, as in, I've got so many books, but which ones are really worth reading? I'm kind of getting to the point where, like, all right, I don't know if general books are worth the time to read, like general population books made for like mass consumption. There's tons of valuable books in that, I will say, but I was kind of like, well, somehow I got to math at the end of it. I was like, okay, physics is the closest thing to reality. Really, at this point in my life, all I want to do is understand the universe, like how everything works. That's kind of like my core drive. And I was like, physics and chemistry and science, biology, science in general, yes. But I guess what underlies all of science is mathematics. So I thought I would start here. Oh, about a year or two ago, I found this YouTuber called The Math Wizard or something like that. He talked about how to self-study math, and then I remembered that. And I actually bought this book at that time. And he had a long list of what the books he recommended for self-studying math. And the first thing he started with was discrete mathematics. And so I thought that would be a good place to start. And this is his recommended textbook, one of the two he recommended for discrete mathematics. And yeah, I guess I could spend a lot of time trying to find the perfect resources to start learning math. That would actually not be a bad use of time. That would not be a bad use of time. I really wanted to start jumping in. Surely there's just like a good book on like the very big overview of math. I know I think currently I have 2 books on math other than that textbook and the other textbooks I own. I got this book called Love and Math, The Heart of Hidden Reality. This was I got this book because this guy was on a Lex Friedman podcast, I believe, and I was like interested in what he had to say, and so I bought his book. Edward Frankel, but I don't know if I want to read this one right now or ever. I don't know. I could figure out what this book's about pretty quickly, a couple minutes. But maybe this one's for later. And then I got another one here, somewhere here. here's another one. Our Mathematical Universe, My Quest for the Ultimate Nature of Reality. That sounds more up my alley. Our Mathematical Universe by Max Tegmark. Yeah, this is interesting. It looks like also a lot of physics. This is a physics professor. All right, so put this, I'm building a little math section then. So I didn't even remember that one. And then I had this more general, maybe it's called the math book, Clifford A. Pickover. I think this is more about the history of math. When did humans tie their first knots? Why was the first woman mathematician murdered? Is it possible to turn a sphere inside out? This one looks a lot more general. Yeah, this one is historical. That's really interesting. Very interesting because it's going to start really early. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Ant odometer. Circa 150 million BC. Wow. This is really interesting. Now, this is something I could get behind. This one's pretty cool. Just as like a general historical, when these big breakthroughs came, when they were discovered. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot here. When does it end though? Checkers is solved. 2007. Okay, it only goes up to 2007, I guess. Pretty interesting stuff right there. So there's 3 books I've got on math, but I kind of, like, the idea was just to get started with something. And I've got books on calculus, I've got books on statistics, I've got books on college algebra, physics, and Math in Our World, more of a general collection of of math. But I thought I would start at discrete mathematics. I've never taken a class specifically on discrete mathematics, and I was kind of like, what even is discrete mathematics? Earlier today, I was trying to figure out what discrete mathematics was, but I think, based on a little bit of thinking and research, I think it's basically like discrete mathematics has to do with systems, or it has to do with like numbers or things that are like finite. That makes sense? Finite things, discrete, finite, with those are like synonyms. Maybe they are. Finite mathematics. Like finite things. So not like continuous things. Like algebra has continuous graphs. You know, you can zoom in on any point in this line and you can keep zooming in forever. None of that. This is more like integers. Integers are a type of number that basically have no decimal or fraction. They're just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. up to infinity, essentially. I don't think infinity is an integer though, so non-inclusive, non-including infinity, and then 0 is an integer, and then negative, all the negative versions. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, all those are integers. So you can see that they're like finite. It's not like 1.001 repeating. It's just like 1. And so they deal a lot with those types of numbers and systems, maybe geometry too, shapes that are finite shapes. Is there even an infinite shape? Surely there's this, I think there's a term for those infinite shapes, those patterns. Not tessellations, but they're often talked about with tessellations, I think. Tessellations, I think, are like the paneling. But yeah. Discrete mathematics. Oh, what do I already know besides like what I'm trying to define as discrete mathematics, like that, like finite, dealing with finite systems and finite units. Finite units. That's good. Math dealing with finite units. I think that's all right for now. Okay. So discrete mathematics, it's not like a formal, I don't think it's a formal branch of mathematics, say like algebra or calculus or linear algebra or whatever you have it. It's more of a collection of mathematics. Is mathematics different than statistics, or is statistics a part of mathematics? A branch of mathematics. I think it's a branch, but it's in school it's separated. Like you get a degree in stats is a different degree than a degree in math, I think, at most schools. Anyway, it's a collection of these. You get little tastes of a bunch of different branches of mathematics, such as like formal logic. So logic, I think, is a branch of mathematics, but discrete math, it's part of discrete math. It's a big umbrella, big term for a type of mathematics that includes many fields. So logic is one, I think. I want to say probability, but that wouldn't make that much sense, right? Is probability always finite? I don't know. I think probability is part of it. Number theory, which I don't even really know what it is, besides like, yeah, I don't really know. Probability, logic, number theory, set theory, which has to do with like sets. Great definition there. Combinatorics. I've seen the word. I've maybe learned about combinatorics in the past, but I don't know what it is. Combinatorics sounds like something computational. It sounds like something you makes me think of like electricity and physics. Combinatorics. Why am I thinking like that? Capacitor or something, or combinations, probably permutations and maybe in there. I don't know. Combinatorics. Anything else? That's 5 of the big branches. Surely there's more. Oh, let's just kind of flip through a little list of symbols at the beginning. Okay. So if I just go to the big, here's the contents section. Okay, interesting. Okay. Appendix A and B. Okay. Do we get into proofs? Set theory, function, set theory, counting. Counting and probability. Sequences and mathematical induction sequences. Sequences are those arithmetic and geometric sequences, right? Those are the sequences. Those are types of sequences. I don't know what mathematical induction is. It sounds like like induction in like science, or induction in, as in like logic, or deriving truth from like finding patterns and then generating a truth from these patterns, or a theory or pattern in general. Elementary number theory and methods of proof. So we get a little bit of proofs. Number theory, logic of compound statements. The hell, that logic of quantified statements. Sequences and mathematical induction. Set theory, counting, which looks like it has to do with probability, but I guess counting. combinations, combinatorial formulas, functions, which I didn't think they would get into functions in discrete math, but I guess you could have like certain piecewise functions and stuff. Pigeonhole principle, I've heard of that. Recursion, so we got not inversion, we had induction and recursion, recursively defined sequences. Yeah, what the hell? Compound interest. Hey, it's part of recursively defined sequence. Okay. Zero notation and the efficiency of algorithms. Zero notation or O notation? Zero notation. Relations. Relations. That's when you have the y in there instead of the f of x. Instead of it's a function, it's got two variables, I think. Wow. Graphs and trees. Graphs and trees, okay. Okay, then we got a preface with a bunch of definitions, algorithms and their analysis. Okay, support for the instructor, featured support for the students, organization, acknowledgements, the logic of compound statements. So this is going to be in, okay. What we could do is we could start with one chapter because this is a little bit overwhelming. We could just start with chapter 1 and try to master or get a good grasp of chapter 1, and then the rest of the stuff will start making more sense, possibly. So I've already studied this a little bit. Yep, I studied this in math for liberal arts majors back in community college. This is where I studied logic. How many sections are there? So there's 5 sections of logic, compound statements. So this is logic of compound statements, logical form and logical equivalence, conditional statements, okay, if, then, right, converse, inverse, contrapositive, yeah. Valid and invalid arguments. I also self-studied this on geometry. Valid and invalid arguments, okay. I remember it a little bit. Digital logic circuits. Okay, applications. There's 2 application sections. That's interesting. What does that application sequence have to do? So, application section. Oh, application section. Where are you? Oh, application section. Here we go. Inclusion of applications. How to motivate students is one of the most important issues in mathematics education. Every concept in this book is applied to in at least one and often in many different ways. 8 sections are explicitly devoted to applications. So we've seen 2 of those. Most of them computer science. And several more sections are heavily weighted toward applications. Although these may be best appreciated by students with some prior or concurrent exposure to computer science per se, the treatment of this book is entirely self-contained. So 2 of them are in the first section of the 8 total. So then there's another one in chapter 3, another one chapter 4. Okay, yeah, interesting. It's loaded up front in that first section. How many pages is this? First chapter is about 60 pages. So this could be a while. Okay. Logic of compound statements. That's the whole logic of, so we're talking about logic of compound statements. That's one of the big chapters here. So I was talking to ChatGPT, and it was basically saying that discrete mathematics is like the foundation of computer science. And so to really understand computer science and algorithms and AI, you're going to want to understand discrete mathematics. And that's why I'm kind of starting here. All right, loud alarm or siren. Sequences, okay. Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. I've never studied a textbook in depth. I've read a textbook like cover to cover, but that's the extent of outside of school, like on my own, studying a textbook. So this is kind of just trying to figure out what to do here. All right, how about I'm just gonna go on to ChatGPT right now, and for the last couple minutes of today, I'm just gonna maybe go on Wikipedia as well and try to get a rough outline of like the field of discrete mathematics, or like what is involved. All right, wrapping up for today. I got this little map of discrete math, and it's basically not. I was using finite. Finite is the wrong term because discrete math can include infinities or infinite sets. So it's basically dealing with structures that are countable, theoretically countable. Theoretically? Yeah, I think so. So we got a bunch of branches. Logic, set theory, combinatorics. Got those three. Discrete probability. That's what I was saying, different than regular probability. Algorithms and complexity, number theory, graph theory, automata theory, and formal languages, and then Boolean algebra. Okay. And basically, I was like, well, then I don't see much of this in this book, but basically, the first chapter, the logic of compound statements, is within logic, but they're even within another branch of logic called. So there's the big term logic, and then within logic, there's propositional logic, and that has to deal with. Propositional logic has to deal with like whole statements that are either true or false, with like logical connectors, like and or stuff like that. And then the second chapter is the logic of quantified statements. Basically, that's logic is the big branch, right? And then within that is predicate logic, and then it's quantified statements within that. So the first two chapters on logic, and that's where we'll pick up tomorrow.